So, calculator, watch that buzzer. Next up, we have Moses Zhou. He was giving his icebreaker speech about a child born in the middle of World War II. Please welcome Toastmaster Moses Zhou.
The story begins in 1943, in the middle of what we now know from the vantage point of the 21st century as the biggest conflict in human history. Imperial Japanese forces occupied roughly half of China, and they continue to advance west. While they do so, they inch closer and closer to a tiny, tiny village, a poor, quiet, but peaceful town, because this village has no strategic value. The farmers are self-sustaining. They are able to sustain themselves with the food they get from their farm. They don't really produce anything extra. But one day, a soldier suddenly showed up to this village. But he didn't bring the war with him. He didn't bring death. Quite the opposite. He brought life. He brought a life. Wrapped around his arms was a baby boy. And he seemed to be in a hurry, and he stopped by this home and just left the baby at the doorstep and hurried away. The home belonged to this farmer couple. The farmer just was overjoyed when he saw this baby, because he and his wife, they have a daughter, but they always wanted a son too. So he took in the baby boy and cared for him and loved him like one of his own. A few years later, the war was over, and the soldier has returned. He came to the same home where he left the baby and asked for him. Where is he now? Is he safe? Is he all right? The farmer has developed such attachment and love for this baby that he could not let him go anymore. So he told the soldier that the baby boy died. The soldier seemed saddened and walked away. Just a few years later, China's at war again, but this time it's not from an external enemy. We're in the Civil War. Nationalist, communist, we don't know which side the soldier took. We don't even know if he survived. But we do know that he never again returned to this village. The boy was lucky. Because of the town's strategic unimportance, he was once again spared from the worst of the war. He grew up very poor. His parents had very little, but they loved him and gave him the little that they had. And the boy had a peaceful childhood in poverty. A few years after that, China was yet again at war, after the Civil War is over. But this time, it's no longer an army that's at war, or two armies that's at war. It's an untraditional war against ordinary people, a decentralized war. You're no longer fighting soldiers, but your friends, your neighbors, in some cases even family members. This time we're at war with a famine. Now the famine, the scary part about it is that it doesn't attack just the stomach. It attacks the mind. It turns people feral in a way. The friends and family members you once knew, they're no longer themselves. They are now strangers, just like all wars are fought. It's fought by strangers from faraway lands. And in a sense, you are still fighting against strangers from faraway lands. There are strangers who now occupy the bodies of your neighbor, your friend, and your family member. They are no longer themselves. These familiar-looking strangers, we don't know what they're capable of. They don't even know what they're capable of. The little humanity that they have left in them have now become incompatible with their raw survival instinct. Hunger has turned friends against each other. We're now fighting for food with little sympathy for the people you once loved. You cannot afford to have sympathy to survive. This boy who was spared from the worst of the wars, the strategic unimportance of his town cannot protect him from this war. He is no longer a boy. Innocence has been snatched away from him. He is now a man. 3 years later, the famine was over. He poverty still followed him into adulthood. But he managed to start a family. He and his wife had 7 children, 6 daughters, and 1 son. The family was so poor that they literally lived inside a cave. I'm not kidding about this. The children grew up calling a cave their home. Imagine that. They were only able to send 2 of their children to school, a daughter and a son. And the son is a very talented student. He grew up studying hard, and he managed to walk further than his father could have ever imagined. He lifted the family finally out of that cave. He destroyed the shackles of poverty. And today, the baby boy in that story is 81 years old. He lives in an apartment surrounded by his family, his loved ones, roughly 2 hours away from the cave and the village that he was from. And to that boy, I just have this to say. I love you, Grandpa.